Hello, my name is Dr. Janet Smith, and I'll be your instructor for quantitative methods for management decisions this term. And in the discussion questions, we start out each term with introductions, and this has really been the first week of the class, and it's a drop add period. So I see that most of you have gone in and introduced yourselves, and I really did enjoy learning about you and learning about what you hope to learn from this class. And so the one thing that I want you to know is a lot of people think that this course is very difficult or perhaps complicated, but it's no more complicated than any other course that you'll be taking. Just go through the materials carefully, give yourself enough time to read and understand it. If you don't understand everything, my goodness, there's so many additional outside opportunities for learning, and you might want to take some time and review some YouTube videos or something, but there's a lot of additional information for you on the web, and there should be no reason why you can't do a great job this term and in this course. The only thing that I do want to stress with you is that there's a lot of material in this course. Do your best, try to meet all these objectives, but don't be too hard on yourself, because sometimes it takes more than one time at this, or it takes practice at learning these techniques. So give yourself plenty of time, and I know you'll do great. I did want to lay some of the foundational logistics out with you tonight, just so that if you have any questions, perhaps I'm answering some, or just to give you some additional information on what's going to be required from you. First of all, how are we going to communicate with each other? As you can see, even the live sessions are different. These are recordings now, and we went to recordings mainly because people were having difficulty scheduling time in their busy schedules to attend a live session. So this is supposed to be more helpful for you and give you the opportunity to listen to some, to your instructor giving you directions without you actually having to be in the class at the same time. So to communicate with you, I will post a lot of announcements, and this is on the front page of your class. So please take a look at those regularly. Also, I'll post your due dates in the assignment or announcements. I've already posted your due dates. I'll follow up in the announcements when there's a lesson or an assignment due in the next few days. I'll send out individual news items reminding you of individual due dates. And even though I gave you the due dates, I didn't say when on the due dates your assignment is due, and I'm going to say by midnight. So here are your dates. Your due dates are April 21st for LP1, April 28th for LP2, May 12th for LP3, May 26th for LP4, and June 9th for LP5, and all of those are due at midnight. Okay, you have to understand that all of the email between us needs to happen in the learning management system. And what's interesting about that is sometimes people will think that they can email me from their personal email account to my account at National, and it'll go through, and it won't. It will only work if you are within the learning management system to email me. So please remember that, because I can't tell you the number of times students have said, I'm going to send you an assignment, which I never accept assignments in the email, but they'll say that they're going to do it anyway, and there's no way you can email from outside the learning management system and for it to get to me. I do want you to also know that I answer my emails once a day. I don't go into the classroom multiple times in a day. I'll come in the morning and I'll answer emails, and then if you come in after that, it won't be until the next day before you see my response. So if you have to get hold of me, I do have office hours every Tuesday from 5:30 to 6:30, but if you need to contact me outside of that, I have posted my office number there, which I do forward to my home address. So please, the best time to call me is between 8:30 and 5:30 CST during the week, and then on from 5:30 to 6:30 on Tuesday evening. But if you need to call me during the week, please do not call me at 2 in the morning, because it does forward to me, and I do answer the phone, and I'm sleeping at that time. So don't do that. Call me during the day. Okay. Also, it says, call me if there's an emergency. There should never be anything in your life that happens that it's an emergency where you need to get hold of me. If you are having an emergency situation, whatever that is, please deal with that and not worry about contacting me. You can contact me after the emergency, just through regular channels. I'll waive any penalty or late penalty or of that, except for discussion questions. Discussion questions, I can't waive the penalty on, but anything else I can. So take care of your emergencies, and then after that, just contact me through normal channels. But if you still want to contact me, just go ahead and contact me during the week. This class used to be 8 learning plans, and students were really working furiously to get all of those assignments done. And we didn't have time to rewrite this course. So what I said was, I want to take 3 of those learning plans out and use that time, give that time to you to concentrate on the other 5. So now we have 5 learning plans, and I will take care of the competencies of the other 3 learning plans during a recorded session. All right, so if you see that it goes 1, 2, 5 or something like that, or if the learning plans are out of order, it's because we took 3 of the learning plans out so that you could concentrate on the other 5 more in depth. And I'm in the process of rewriting the course, so that's what we're going to do. And we fix the assignments to reflect that, and you should be just fine. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact me, but there's no problem. All we did is take out 3 learning plans so that you didn't have that much additional work to do. Okay? You'll still get the knowledge. Don't worry about that. We'll still have the competencies in recorded sessions, but I think this will be much better for you. Okay, you know the rule. This is all independent work. There's not really any teamwork here, except in the discussion questions where you get to collaborate and network. I want to ask you to be cognizant of the importance of these discussion questions, and to remember that you have a substantive reply and 2 replies to your fellow students, but I agree, or isn't that great, or boy, you were wonderful there, does not count as a response. So take this time to, share knowledge with each other and really learn this material. Okay, also, if you want a study hall, you're going to need to let me know. But here's how it's going to go. It's going to be on Saturday mornings. It's going to be at 9:30 on Saturday morning. More than one person has to attend. I'll go over the problems with you if you would like, and we can just work through them. I will not record those sessions, so either you come or you don't come. That's up to you, but let me know. So I'll put a thread in the discussion questions that'll say, do you want a study hall? And see what you all have to say. But I have to tell you, this textbook has great problems. If you just sit and read the problems and work through them, you'll do great. And I'll try to address a lot of these questions in your live sessions or recorded sessions. Also, please read the expectations document. It's very important. I hold you to it. So be sure that you understand it. Okay, rubrics. Please take a moment to read your rubrics. I use them to grade your materials. There are no D grades, D final grades in graduate work, so if you don't make a C or better, you will make an F. And that happens, and I don't like that, so please make a C or better. My role in this course is to be a facilitator, to help you learn. Your role is to learn, to do your research, to do your quality work, but I am not your editor, nor am I a study hall. Well, I guess I am going to give a study hall, but I'm not a tutor. So you're going to need to either get together in a group and work these problems as a group, or have a study group, or have a study hall with me, but I will not allow you to ask me or submit the work early and say, can you grade this and let me know how I'm doing and send it back so I can do it again. No. You give me your best work in the best form, and we'll go through that. But I will help you with a study hall if that's what the class wants. Okay. You need to submit your assignments through the Dropbox. I will not grade any assignments that are submitted to me through email. This is for your protection. That system is designed to log in your assignments, and I have to actually go into the Dropbox to grade your work. So I can't grade your work outside of there. So put it in there, I grade from there, I give your feedback from there. Okay. I don't start grading the assignment until the following morning after the midnight due date. And so don't think that I'm going to be up at midnight grading these, because I won't be. And please understand that I post grades by Sunday midnight. So if you post your assignment by Monday at midnight, by Sunday midnight, the following Sunday, I will have your grades in. And also everything is run through Turnitin. Okay. If you are going to have late work, please contact me in advance. If you do not contact me in advance, unless it's an emergency that's documented, you will have a 10% per day penalty reduction on that paper and that assignment. So just contact me in advance, send me an email, let me know, tell me what your plan is and your timeline on when you're going to get that to me. And I'm great about working with people if you talk to me in advance. If you don't tell me in advance, there's a penalty involved. So please let me know, okay? And here's my office number. Okay. I believe in the 70-20-10 rule, where 70% of your new knowledge that you attain comes through your colleagues. 20% will come through your boss, and only 10% will come through, believe it or not, formal educational situations such as this. You really learn most from each other, so take the opportunity to take the time to discuss these questions with each other and bounce ideas off with each other. And this is the time to do it. This is where you have that collaboration and networking with your fellow students. And get together and work these problems yourselves. Discuss them, work through them, share each other's knowledge. It's a great way to build relationships with your colleagues through these discussion questions. Okay, and here are some things that you need to know. A lot of times students don't answer the questions in the discussion forums, and you'll be docked points for that. We're asking you these questions for a reason. So I'm going to look to see if you answered the question, if all the components of the question were present in your answer. Did you read the theory? Were you able to combine the theory with practical experience? If you're going to cite something, you have to use APA. You have to use good grammar. Watch your misspelled words. And also, if you go in on the last day and post all of your substantive replies and all of your replies to fellow students, you will lose a lot of points. That doesn't give them an opportunity to read your fellow students, an opportunity to read your work, doesn't give me an opportunity. That is not the purpose of the discussion question. I want you to go in early, and I want you to go in on multiple days, and I want to see for every single response, every single discussion question, at least 3 different days where you go in, independent days where you go in. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, I missed the due date, and there's no makeup for that. You have 2 weeks to post discussion questions. I would expect that if you turned in your work on Monday, that by Wednesday your first discussion question will be posted, your substantive reply. And then I expect you to go in at least 2 more times for each discussion questions for a total of 3 different submissions on 3 different days. Okay? If you have any questions on that, please let me know. And also, keep in mind, I can keep track of how many responses you are reading. And what's interesting to me is those people who only go in and answer 2 other students and read 2 other discussion questions don't do as well as people who go in and read everybody's discussion question, everybody's answers. And this is a small class, so I should expect to see everybody reading everybody else's work, and I read everything. And I'll post questions to you. And sometimes you'll see where I will send you an email saying, heads up on this, because I won't, if I'm giving you direction, I won't give it in the discussion forum. I'll typically come outside of the discussion forum in an email and ask you to clarify something or do something, or we'll talk about something. Please, no flaming. Please always assume the best, not the worst. Please just assume people are saying their best, not their worst. I don't want to see any fighting in these discussion forums. We're graduate students. We shouldn't be doing that. You do have a specified time frame with these discussion questions. After the due date is over, just move on to the next one, because I will lock them down. And it's like having a conversation in a room with people. If they move to the next room, you're in the room excuse me, you're in the room by yourself, talking. Of course, that's not a conversation. Okay. Also, if you cannot see your responses, others cannot see your responses. So be sure to contact me if you're having any issues with IT, and get with the help desk, because once these discussion question forums close, that's it. Whether you've had problems with IT or not, you will have to move on. So please go in early. If you have any problems with IT, please get with the help desk. Please let me know, and please make sure that we get all the requirements for your discussion questions done before the due date expires. Okay, here's the thing about the assignments. These assignments are they're a lot. There's a lot involved in these assignments. So be sure to work on this a little every day. If you think you're going to be able to complete all the assignments on Monday, it's going to be challenging to you. There's a lot of reading, there's a lot of problems, practice problems, there's a lot to do. So my recommendation to you is to get on this as quickly as possible and spend, an hour every day on it at least. Please read the assignment carefully. Please understand what the assignment requirements are, and you only have to use a certificate of authorship for your very first learning plan. If you continue to send those, I will ask you to stop, and if I have to ask you more than once to stop, then I guess I'll have to start deducting points. It's important that you read and interpret the expectations and what's required of you on these assignments. And just because you think that more is better, it's not necessarily the case. Your boss wouldn't want that, and this is a competency and a skill that you're developing in class, so I'll hold you to these requirements. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Chapter 1, Introduction to Quantitative Analysis. And this is just the PowerPoint that you have in your in your materials. Now, let me tell you a little bit about these objectives, okay? This is your roadmap. These are the things that you need to be able to do in this assignment, all right? And so what I would do is I would print this out, and as I'm going through it, I would check them off to make sure that you understand what each of these assignments are. Now, you'll see that every assignment has an active verb. And these active verbs are really important to academics such as myself because it comes from Bloom's taxonomy. And there's higher level learning and then there's lower level. Okay, and in this particular case, so when we want to describe something, that is in the realm of just comprehension. Do you just understand it? You know, describe it. What is this? And then understand. Let's see, where does that come in? Well, again, that's in just lower level comprehension. Describe. Well, now this is a little bit higher level of learning. So now we're going to get into the analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Just use. Okay, that's an application skill. Discuss. These are things that we're going to do in our discussion questions. Okay, so this again is an application. You're discussing something. And then perform a break-even analysis. So these are the things that you're supposed to be able to feel comfortable about after you've completed this particular chapter. Okay, so these learning objectives, you'll see these learning objectives will align with your discussion questions and then align again with your assignments. Okay, so here's our chapter outline, and you'll see this outline completely aligns with what the objectives were. So here's the introduction, and what they're trying to say is this. You know, mathematics is a way for us to communicate with each other. All right. Now, if you have not had statistics or if you have not had algebra, this course might be challenging for you. You have to understand, say, order of operations. You have to understand mathematical symbology, like the sum symbol. There are a lot of things that you should know already, but one of the things that we're going to talk about in this class is how do managers make decisions, and best practices in management decision making is to use these quantitative tools to make a decision versus using just intuition, shoot from the hip. What's your gut feeling on that? What's so amazing to me about these tools is you will think that data will say one thing, that the gut feeling will say, well, you know, my gut feeling is that when you look at the data, it's going to do this. And once you run these quantitative tools, the data will show something else. And I'm going to show you where if you use these tools consistently, instead of just shooting from the hip or saying, oh, managerial judgment, what you will see is tremendous increases in productivity, which leads to profitability, which leads to jobs, which leads to, you know, competitive. I mean, there's so many things align with this. And what's interesting is so many people say, well, I just don't do math. I hear that all the time. I just don't do math. Well, you know, then you're never going to be a successful manager. There's no way if you can't make successful decisions, and these are the tools that you will need to make a successful decision. Okay, and this is important. It's not just enough to know the mathematics. It's not just a plug and chug, but you have to understand the specific applicability of the techniques, its limitations and its assumptions. And that's true. You know, all these is a tool. These are tools that you will use from your toolbox. So for instance, you would not use a hammer to screw in a screw. You would use a screwdriver. So that's the applicability of the technique. And that's the challenging thing. There are limitations and assumptions with these techniques, and you need to just chart that out, have a chart up and say, okay, what is the technique? What is it used for? What its limitations? What its assumptions? And see if your data fits that. And because it's your job to pick the right tool for the decision. And that's one of the challenging things. But once you start to understand that it's just a tool, just like a hammer, just like a saw, just like a screwdriver, and you get to understand when is this tool best used, it's pretty easy to select the right tool, gather the data, run the numbers, and then after you run the numbers, you do get to use managerial decision to make your final decision. Here's some examples of it. In the mid-1990s, Taco Bell saved over $150 million using forecasting and scheduling quantitative analysis models, which you'll learn about in this class. NBC Television increased revenues by over $200 million between 1996 and 2000 by using quantitative analysis. Continental Airlines saved over $40 million in 2001 using quantitative analysis. So that these are the best practices. This is something you as a manager and a leader will need to know how to use. Okay, and believe me, we just showed that it's just the last 20 years where people are really using this. Managers used to just rely on gut feelings. We didn't have calculators. We didn't have Excel. We didn't have these software programs to help us, but now we do. So there's no excuse for not running the data, doing the research, and then making an analysis. So here's quantitative analysis. It's a scientific approach to managerial decision making in which raw data are processed and manipulated to produce meaningful information. So that's what we're trying to do. We're taking our raw data, we're going to analyze it and make meaningful information into it. Now this is also a systems model, inputs, transformations, and outputs. So it's interesting to me. Raw data, input, quantitative analysis, which is a transformation process and meaningful information. Interesting. Okay. So where is it used? Well, examples include investment alternatives, interest rates, inventory levels, demand, labor costs. Qualitative are a little more difficult to quantify, but qualitative factors also affect the decision process, and examples include state and federal legislation, technological breakthroughs, the weather, but it's more difficult to quantify the weather or what your state legislators are doing, I suppose. Okay, so this is a great model. So it's coming out on your screen right now. Here we go. I hope this all shows up. Here we go. All right. I would print this out, actually. The first step in quantitative analysis is to define the problem. And as future leaders, or maybe you're leaders today, I don't know, but what I have found in both academics and in my business, I'm a small business owner, is the number one problem that most people have today is to define the problem correctly before they start to solve the problem. And I don't care what the problem is. The problem could be you have a assignment due in 2 weeks, or the problem could be, what should we forecast for sales? I don't care what the problem is, but it's challenging for people to accurately define the problem. So really that's the first step in the process. From there you will develop a model, acquire the input data that we talked about, develop a solution, and then you test the solution. So you don't develop the solution and then implement it. you have to test it first. And then you have to analyze the results. And you can see that there's a feedback loop, because if you test it and it doesn't work, then you have to go back to the model again and go through the process again. And again, once you test it and then you get to analyzing the results, it may not work again. So you may have to go back to the developing a model. Now, I'm going to tell you something. What's interesting to me is that every discipline seems to have a different analysis or problem-solving approach. This is the quantitative analysis approach, but you'll see that, say, like in engineering, the analysis approach is different. And so there might be some conflict in business sometimes as you're trying to do something and the engineers are there and the marketing people are, I mean, there could be a lot of different disciplines there, and you have to understand that these disciplines all have a different decision-making model. This is your model. And this is where I say, you know, print this out and learn to use it. Don't skip a step. Do not skip a step. Don't go from acquiring data to let's just implement the results. Take the steps and take the time that you need so that you can then explain it and justify your decisions to management. Because believe me, once you start to implement a result, you start to spend money. And once you start spending money, now it's a whole different game. So, you know, as you're going through this, it's very easy to develop a model and test the solution. There is some effort and there's some expense to it. But once you start to implement the results, that's when you start, you know, really making some, you know, charges to the company, and this is where jobs can be affected. Let me give you an example of this. This is a real situation. You know how every so often you're listening around Christmas time or the holidays, you hear, oh, certain company laid off 200 people right at Christmas time. You know, they always seem to do it right before the holidays for some reason. Well, there's a company, an international company, and this international company made a product for the government. And they had been the only company in the United States manufacturing this product for a long time, and because of that, they charged a premium for it. Well, what happened is a competitor came into the marketplace, and they were able to make the same product, and they wanted this federal government contract, and they said that they would lower the price if the federal government would go with them. So instead of the federal government just saying, okay, well, we're just going to take this company we've been doing business with for 50 years and leave them and just go to this newcomer, the first thing they did is they went to the person or to the company that they were purchasing this product from, and they said, hey, I can get the same product at a much lower price. Will you meet that price? And, you know, instead of defining the problem and developing a model and seeing if they could, make this product at a lower price, instead of doing that, the manager said, no, we're not going to lower a price. So the federal government went to the other company and gave them the contract, and when that happened, the original company lost a lot of their income, and they had to lay off 200 people at Christmas time. Now, interestingly enough, the manager was not fired. And I would have asked, as a leader, I would have asked, what were you thinking? These 200 families are now without a good paying job, without health care, without all of these things, and it was one manager's decision who did that in a large company. And just look at what's going on right now with GM. What is going on? You know, what is it? At less than $1 to, fix this part, and they said, no, we're just going to let these cars with these ignition problems on the roads, and it killed so many people, it injured so many people. That was a bad decision. And so in the future, if you would use this quantitative analysis approach, perhaps there would be better decisions made today in business. Okay, so define the problem. And I'm going to let you all read through this yourself, but really the first thing is, what's what is the problem? Are you clear about it? What is the direction and meaning for subsequent steps? And as I said, it's very hard to do this. A lot of times people say, give me a symptom instead of the true problem. A lot of times people just want to do a Band-Aid, let's fix this symptom, and they never get to it, and it just continues to haunt you as a manager. You can't seem to get past it, okay? So it's very important that you define the problem. Once you define the problem, then it's very important that you pick the model, the tool that you need in order to analyze it. And so there will be mathematical problems such as a regression analysis, or there'll be scale models, as you see in the picture with the gentleman and the automobile, and then there'll be schematic models as well. And so it's important for you to understand what model you need in order to, understand the situation a little bit better. Models contain variables, and some variables are controllable and some are uncontrollable, and also parameters. So you need to know the difference between a variable, and you need to know the different and what a parameter is, okay, and how that fits into the model. Then you need to acquire the input data, and I'm sure you've heard this: garbage in, garbage out, and that's true. So you have to make sure, and sometimes it's easy to gather data. Sometimes in your mechanical operations, it'll be set up where it's continually monitoring the manufacturing process, and it's collecting that data automatically, and sometimes you have to go out and collect the data from people. So it's just important that you understand where they got the data, how reliable it is, and how you're going to use it in the model that you've selected. Then developing a solution, okay? Some techniques in this are just solving equations, or sometimes you're doing trial or error, or complete enumeration, or using an algorithm. There are other ways, and a lot of this, most of this, we'll be doing this term. Okay, I'm going fast, I understand that, but we're just going through your model here. Okay, then you test your solution. Okay, so you test it for accuracy before you implement it, of course, or you may have to collect new data, or you may have to relook at it. But here's what I always tell students and people in industry. I always say to them, after they've run the numbers, I'll say, does that seem reasonable to you? And it's really interesting to me because I'll see people using these calculators and punching, equations through and numbers through, and they'll get an answer with 4 decimal positions, and they'll think that they're so accurate with all of this, and in the end, it doesn't make any sense to me, and I'll say to them, well, I think there's an error somewhere here. Oh no, it couldn't be an error. And I'm like, yeah, I think there's an error. So you always need to say, does that even seem reasonable to me? And a lot of times why this stuff seems a little more challenging than, I don't know, say other classes, is because all this is everything in quantitative analysis is a word problem. Remember how difficult these word problems were in elementary school when you're trying to figure out 2 trains going to Chicago at different times. When are they going to, one's going this speed, one's going that speed, when are they going, all of this stuff was challenging, because it's a word problem, and you had to figure out what are the variables, what are the parameters, and then you had to run a model in it and make a decision. These what you find in business is everything is a word problem, and you have to take the time to set up this, understand the variables, understand the parameters, understand your tools, understand if your data is clean and usable. You have to understand all of that before you even run a number. With Excel and all of the software packages that you're going to get an opportunity to use, doesn't matter if the data isn't good, okay? So you have to test your input data and the model for accuracy, as well before you do anything, because your calculator could be set up wrong, your Excel spreadsheet could have a formula just a little off. So you need to make sure that you test the model, and you have to make sure that everything seems logical, consistent, and represents the real situation. Okay? Then you analyze the results, and also you have the opportunity maybe to do a sensitivity analysis to determine how much of the results will change, if the data changes a bit. So this is a great opportunity, especially in Excel. You have this opportunity to play what if all the time, and to change the numbers, and to see, how the data looks once you start changing some of these inputs. So, but then as a manager, when you've run all of this, you still have to stop and you have to think, oh my gosh, how is this change or implementing this going to, affect the organization? People don't like change, right? What could happen if you implement these results, right? What's the impact of actions or changes before implementation? And we've all seen that. I mean, take a look at what Netflix did just, what is that, 2 years ago now. They decided, okay, we're just going to start raising everybody's price. We're going to change the model altogether. And he just sent out a letter and said, here's what we're going to do. And what happened? He lost a lot of Netflix customers, right? I know I changed my plan, and I have, the lowest plan there is. But, I just saw Amazon said, well, we're going to raise Prime from $79 a year to $99 a year. I'm wondering how that will play out. I've been paying Amazon Prime now for several years at $79. I actually live out in the country, and I don't have good internet, so I can't download movies and that sort of thing like other people can with Prime. I just liked having the flexibility of having everything 2-day delivered. I like that, but I'm not sure that $99, I'm going to have to do an analysis on that to see if it's worth it to me based on the past 2 years of my, purchasing from Amazon. So, you just have to make sure, and you have to run what's the best scenario, what's the most likely, and what's the worst scenario in all of these before you make a decision. Then let's say you decide and you implement the results. Again, very challenging. You may have to bring in HR. You may have to, you may have to bring in, based on what it is that you're looking at, a lot of people making a lot of changes. People are resistant to change. A lot of times, the right analysis failed because, you just couldn't properly implement it. And I'm sure that you can think of your own companies and realize how very difficult change is based on the culture of the organization. So, even if upper management is all behind it, even if they hold you accountable in your performance review, you have to monitor it to determine if it's working and if other changes need to happen, even though it's the right thing to do. You see this time and time again. You remember the big bailout of General Motors, and then Ford didn't need it because they had already analyzed the industry and decided that they were going to put in, more robotics, and they were going to change their product line. And, you just have to take a look at how people want to run things and how they, look, GM, didn't want to fix their ignition, and Ford, it looks like, they made some better decisions than GM over the years. So, all of these changes and all of this is just, going to take time for you to sort out and monitor over the years. But what you need to know is that these type of models are used extensively in organizations today, and people such as yourself who have this knowledge have the ability to get better paying jobs, good paying jobs in their organizations, because few people really still know how to do this, and they're resistant to it, which I can't figure out. But you know, as this says, in the real world, quantitative analysis models can be complex, expensive, and difficult to sell, but you know, it can also lead to gains in productivity and profitability that are pretty substantial. So let me go back on this. So how to develop a quantitative analysis model. Okay, so this is very simple. What's a mathematical model of profit? Well, mathematically, profit is where you have revenue minus expenses. Okay, if you have something left over, that's profit, right? I look at profit a little differently than that, but let's go with this. So, let's see if I can go back. So, how to develop a quantitative analysis model? Well, expenses can be represented as the sum of fixed and variable costs. And probably most of you have looked at this before. And variable costs are the product of unit costs times the number of units. So here we have, now we're looking at profit. Instead of profit equals revenue minus expenses, now we said, well, expenses can be fixed costs and variable costs. And so profit now, they're going to say, well, revenue now is selling price per unit times the number of units sold minus the fixed cost plus the variable cost times the number of units sold. Okay, and so now all they did is take this word problem and they put it into mathematical notation. So, you know, profit now is S times X minus F plus Vx. And so you can see down here where S equals the selling price per unit, F is the fixed cost sold, V is the variable cost per unit, and X is the number of units. And so now we were able to create a mathematical equation model based on just a word problem, where we just quantified what revenue totally meant, what expenses totally meant, and then we were able to substitute the narrative for mathematical notation, where we then defined what these variables and parameters were. Easy. Okay, and so the parameters of this model are F, V, and S, as these are the inputs inherent in the model, and the decision variable of interest is X, or the number of units. Okay, and then there's another example where we're using this formula, and it's a word problem, right? The company buys, sells, and repairs old clocks. Rebuilt springs sell for $10 per unit. Okay, so S equals 10. Okay, and then fixed cost of equipment to build the springs is $1,000, and the variable cost for the spring material is $5 per unit. So now you've plugged all of that in, and so now you're saying, well, if sales equals 0, profits equal negative 1,000, but if sales equal 1,000, profits equal 4,000. So they were able to play what if there. Okay, what's the worst scenario? What's, most likely? Okay. Another very common equation or model that we use is the break-even point. And that was one of your objectives, remember? We wanted to be able to solve a break-even. And so the break-even point is the number of units sold that will result in 0 profit. But you're still able to cover your expenses, but you don't have any profit. And that's just the break-even. Of course, you want to get past that point into profitability. Okay, and this is where they just put this into the formula. And they said sales of less than 200 units will result in a loss, but sales of over 200 units will result in a profit. So that's very easy for that entrepreneur to say, let's get past that 200 unit mark. After that, it's all profit. Okay. So, models can represent reality. They can help you make decisions. They can give you insight and information, which is not raw data. This is information that you can use to make a decision. They can help you save time and money in making decisions and problem solving. And a model may be the only way to solve large or complex problems in a timely fashion. And also a model can be used to communicate the decisions to others. You do have to take a look at risk when you're making a model and when you're um, running the data. And you have to understand that just because you're running a model does not mean that that's the true answer. That's the true outcome. A lot of times I've made a lot of forecasts, and I can tell you every single forecast I've ever run in my life has actually not come true. And if you talk to anybody who runs forecasts, they'll tell you the same thing, that they rarely come out exactly as you're running them. But it gives you a good idea of where the process is going. Okay, so there's always risks, there's always uncertainty, and you have to take that into account with your models. Now, what's interesting is in Chapter 2 they start to talk about probabilities and probabilities of success. And at that point, when you start talking about probabilities, you start talking about statistical techniques as well, and there's always a little bit of error in these, and that's the risk that they're talking about. Okay, so let's take a look at some of your computers and spreadsheets you're going to use. The software is there for you. It's very simple. Just download it and you'll be able to use this with a lot of your assignments, and you'll see that there's break-even, decision analysis, forecasting, game theory, goal programming. So please take the time to download these software programs because you're going to be doing assignments using them. Same thing with spreadsheets. There'll be add-ins that you will need to set up from your value pack in order to run a lot of these assignments. As you can see, Excel QM is here. And again, you can see there's break-even analysis, decision analysis. You're just going to need to download these software programs and be able to run them for your assignments. Again, so there's quite a bit here. Again, they're just going through the possible problems in the quantitative analysis approach. Again, defining the problem, developing the model, acquiring the input, developing a solution, testing the solution, and then organizing the results in terms of the whole organization. And this is where managerial decision making will come in. They did make a point that implementation is not just the final step in the model. There could be, as we talked about before, a lack of commitment and resistance to change by members of the organization. Also, as odd as this may sound, there will be people who may fear using best practices in formal analysis process because it reduces their ability to make decisions. And as I said, there's managers out there that want to shoot from the hip and to, just what feels great in the gut and that sort of thing. And I'm telling you, I'm really telling you, I've seen it time and time again, that what the gut may feel is not what the data is going to show you. So run the data every time. Okay. Here is your quiz. Okay. I would like for you to put this on a Word document, and I would like for you to upload it to the appropriate box. There's 5 questions, and they're each worth 4 points each. Each learning plan will have a 20-point quiz attached to it that you can only get to by listening to the recorded session. So once you listen to this session, then I want you to take the quiz, and I'll grade the quiz, and then I'll put that into your seminar grade, and that will total cumulative to 100 points each term. This is like the old life session where you came to 3 life sessions and you got like 33 points, and then 34 points for the last one. Now you get 20 points each week if you answer the quiz questions correctly. Okay, well that's all there is tonight. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to give me a call. If you want a study hall, let me know, and I'll see you online. Take care.